What's up, everybody? Chad here with you. Welcome back to the Dorky and 40 channel. And today I want to talk about my default PIDs and settings that I have been using for Betaflight 4.0. Now that we are this close to a release, I feel pretty confident that these defaults will work well for a lot of you out there. I've been running the same default settings on a 4S and 5S high KV setup, so 2207, 2450 source 1s with a Hero 7 on top, and my Super G 6S setup running 1750 kV motors that is really heavy, and my other source 1 that is a 6S that is obviously a little bit lighter. And I've been working off of the same set of defaults, just kind of tweaking them a little bit here and there for each craft. And this is pretty much what I've settled in on. Let's take a look at what's going on here real quick. So just for comparison's sake here, you can see that the Super G fully loaded out build that I'm running here with a 1250 6S is coming in at 773 grams. My 6S Source 1 build is coming in at 745 grams, and the 5S Source 1 build is coming in at 700 grams. So I think the days of the 620 to like 650 gram quad are kind of behind us, especially if you want to fly a Hero 7. There's really just nothing you can do about it. And if you want to drop down in weight a little bit, you can always try to find a 1000 milliamp 6S battery. But with the 1250s, you get that little bit of extra flight time that 6S always promised us, and it works fine. There's plenty of power. I don't really see it as a concern. I'm happy. I enjoy flying my 6S builds more than the 5S just because A, the 6S batteries are newer, so obviously they're lasting longer, and B, they just don't sag. So anyway, after those thoughts, let's take a look at Betaflight and let's look at the configuration of my Super G, and we'll go ahead and just roll the GoPro footage down in the corner as well, and maybe I'll put a little bit of a longer edit of it at the end. So the first thing I like to do is I like to bump up my idle speed to about an 8. I think the reason why I like this so much is that when you're coming on and off the throttle really hard in different maneuvers, your motors are already spun up a little bit more, and it helps eliminate prop wash a little bit. It's just something that I've been playing with. Feel free to adjust yours. I've played with this all the way up to like 10-11%, and I haven't noticed any problems at all. Noisier builds, when you get it a little bit higher, it might want to hop off the ground, so just kind of be careful with that. Now in the PID tuning tab, first thing we'll do is we'll take a look at Betaflight defaults, which are right here. You can see our default PIDs on everything. Actually, I think I've changed these a little bit, but they're all pretty similar. I know this is right, and I think I just cranked up pitch and roll a little bit. But what you're here for is my default settings. So this is what I've been running as my defaults. 50 on P for roll, 56 on pitch, and I don't touch yaw, I leave it at 35. That pretty much follows the recommendation from the Betaflight dev tuning guide. I've tried increasing yaw to like 45 or 50 and really haven't noticed a whole lot of difference. So I figured I would just deal with it and leave it the way it is, and then just work with my rates and my expo to kind of dial in my yaw a little bit more. When it comes to the P gains and I gains are pretty much going to be more left up to the user and how connected and experienced you are when it comes to flying. So these are some kind of good defaults, I think, to start with. If you want to keep it all like decently odd numbers or round numbers or whatever, you can start with 55. So 50, 55, 35. I've settled on 56 for the Super G just because I feel it needs a little bit more of authority and pitch. So the Super G is a heavier kind of filming type of freestyle quad for smooth flying and that kind of stuff. So that's why I have my I gains turned up. But believe it or not, this feels and works just as fine on my Source 1 builds, just because it just gives you that extra feeling of control that I really like. I've cranked up my D gains because now that we're running this D-min thing, we really don't have to worry about the D gains being super active all the time. So as per UAV Tech and Mark Spat's videos, I've increased my D gains to 40 and 38, and then we played with the gain and advance and stuff down here in order to only apply these heavy D gains when we need them. Feed forward is going to be another setting that is going to be kind of up to the user, but I have a good feeling of this right here with 75 on roll and pitch and 100 on yaw. This works out pretty good with my rates in combination with a feed forward transition, a 0.35 that just gives me a really nice soft stick center feel because, you know, you can tell by my rates, even though they kind of go up fast here at the end, I'm trying to keep them as linear as possible until the very end of the stick movement, because I just don't do a lot of like flippy floppy type of flying. So feel free to play around with that a little bit, but this is feeling really good for me, and it's kind of similar to what you would see in my video. I've turned up the defaults on D-min a little bit. I ran it in debug mode and noticed that like during straightforward flight, my roll was at 22 and my pitch was around 25. I put it at 23 and 26 just to have like a little bit of headroom. The default gain for how much it will actually increase the D gains is 27. I put it at 35. So that way when the quad is calling for more D, it's there and it can shoot up to these values if needed. Advance, I leave at 20, and this is basically how fast it's going or slow it's going to respond. And you can black box all this stuff if you want to, but it's really not necessary. All of this, I believe, is actual default settings except for the feed forward transition. You might need to change your set point type, your type from set point to gyro. I would rather it follow what is going on with my gyros as far as I-term versus what's going on with my stick inputs. I really like to put a lot of anti-gravity into my quads now. 7.5 seems to be a good number that I've settled on for everything. And when it comes to TPA, we're only using TPA with the D term now. So I only want TPA, I only want it really working or you know, taking stuff away when I'm at like the very high end of like my throttle. So I want full command of my D gains and everything like that when I'm doing certain maneuvers to help control prop wash and everything like that. But if I do like a punch out, there's just no need for it. So I have my TPA set at 1800, which is about 80% of the throttle. So when I'm above 80% of the, at 80% of the throttle or above, it's going to start clipping that down big time by like 80%. And then of course it's going to come down. And this kind of is a linear down curve. So it's going to be dropping off pretty quickly because it has to hit 0 before you get from 80% to 100% stick. So when it comes to filtering, right now I'm pretty much just using all of the default filtering. I have played with the RPM filter, but I'm still working on that a little bit now that some things have got ironed out with these release candidate builds. But I've had absolutely no problem with any of these. On a really clean quad, you can probably even experiment with bumping up these low pass levels to 170 or 200, and you could also try changing them from biquad to PT1. But right now, I have no problem with any kind of latency or anything like that that people are going to talk about. The automatic D and the dynamic gyro, like that's all just working great. So I don't have any problem with it on any of my builds. You cannot get a quad to fly as good as it does now 6 months ago. Like, this software is just locked in and all of these defaults are working good. So the Betaflight defaults are great, and I recommend that you really fly them a little bit, especially if you're kind of newer and just kind of see how things go. And then, as everybody's going to say, just make one change at a time. I recommend start changing your P gains and before you do anything like anti-gravity or any of that stuff, because all this stuff just kind of like mixes and mingles together. But this is like a proven good setup that I've ran, like I said, on 3 different quads now with different KVs, different motors, different voltages, all around the same weights. And I'm getting some super results, very happy, pulling decently clean film. So I know there's some pixel counting haters out there that are going to say, oh, I see this and I see that, but I stick to my point that Betaflight and these guys have done a super job. The equipment we're running now is just amazing. You cannot get a quad to fly like they do this easy 6 months ago, definitely not a year ago. So some of you might not agree with some of my methods. I say that's fine. That's what this is all about. But for those of you that have reached out to me personally and everything else, I hope this kind of gives you a good starting point as far as what you can kind of practice with and try and just kind of see what my thinking is. I know, like with the Squirt V2 and a lot of different things, that people are really like slowing down and wanting to fly and get that good mid-range shot, all that kind of stuff. A lot of that like flippy floppy park stuff is getting really hard for people to watch. I know some of it is really hard for me to watch personally, but there's still a few people that I'm super fans of. I think Overflow just dropped a video the other day and I just loved it, man. Like, you know, he really explains some things pretty good about that new RMAT and quads. Definitely check him out. Don't forget to check out UAV Tech for all of this latest and greatest stuff, who explains this on astronomical terms compared to Chad here. Just go out and fly, have fun, and stop back at the channel because we're going to have a few things coming in here pretty soon. So we'll talk to you guys later.